Hey guys, how's it going? This is Fandom Empire Live. I am Kieron, your host. If you guys haven't heard already, Sean will be off for a couple weeks. We're going to feel it out. And me and my rotating guest host will all try to fill in and see how we do. Tonight we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about the MCU a little bit. We're going to talk about movies that we shamefully, we're not apologizing for the fact that we like these movies, even though they're probably not on everyone's favorite lists. So that should be a fun one. You guys can get in on that. It would be. Ooh. Is my mic too loud? What do you guys feel? I'm getting someone saying the mic is hot. Is that me or is that Johnny? No, you guys are muted. Maybe it's just because I'm being loud and I talk really loud when I try to be the host. We're going to talk about Batman. Apparently, there was a 4-hour cut of Batman that was released. Released to test audiences, and that's got people really excited. Myself included. We'll talk about that. We were going to talk a little bit about a Scream sequel, but that was with Michael Bish being on the show, and he unfortunately had to cancel. So we'll definitely get to that later. But before we get into everything, with our interesting triangle team here that we probably haven't, I don't think we've ever tried this combination out. I mean, most combinations without Sean haven't happened. Yes, Johnny does suck. However, his shirt does not. I don't see the shirt. It's a black shirt. It's a regular black shirt. Ooh, Guns N' Roses. Yes, Guns N' Roses is pretty awesome, except for their latest bullshit. And I can say that because Sean is not on the show. Johnny, how's it going, man?
It is going about as well as it can be after watching yet another Packers playoff choke.
It's weird when you get a fan base like that, and the fact that they just keep making it to the same spot is very annoying because you're not rebuilding, you're not whatever. They're just reloading every time. They're like, okay, next time. I mean, we keep making the championship game, which this year they didn't, but they did. They were the first seed, so. And then it's just disappointing every year. I heard someone say recently that the Saints were the most tortured fan base lately. And I don't know if they might be giving up the crown because while they didn't make the playoffs, it was obvious that they weren't going to make the playoffs, or that they probably weren't going to make the playoffs without Drew Brees. Anyways, but we'll try to get past that all today, and we'll just talk about some fun shit. Tommy B, how's it going, man?
It is going, dude. Yeah, it's been a bit of a quiet day on my end. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Keeping my eye on the socials here and there, seeing some halfway interesting news drop that has been heavily rumored for a while. So it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, actually, I should promote, while we're not going to talk about a lot of our news that we got in here on Halloween Ends, we did get a lot of interesting information about Halloween Ends. We are going to talk about that on Patreon. Sean will still be doing the Patreon show, so if you're like, you know what, this I had enough of this Kieron guy already. This show is bullshit. You could still go to Patreon and get some Sean content when he's releasing it. There's a release schedule for that sort of stuff. However, lots of interesting news we got on Halloween Ends. And if you want to find out about that, you got to go to Patreon. We got our Patreon down here, patreon.com/Fandom Empire. There's lots of tiers. You could start as low as $3, I think. It's $3 American or $2. Wow, no.
$2 or $3.
$2 American, $3 Canadian.
US dollars, yeah.
Something like that. There's a low tier, and there's also like all the information we get tier way up there as well. So lots of interesting perks. You can go and check it out. Just check it out at that their link at the bottom. It will just cost you the young bucks. Good reference for Tommy B. He loves that shit. Let's get into it first. I would like to talk about Amelia Clarke and Kit Harington in the MCU. I think it was really interesting that they're both going to be having MCU roles. Now, Kit Harington is rumored to be in the Blade movie with Marshala Ali, um, because uh, in the cutscene that's at the end of the Eternals, he has a sword, and then someone says, "Are you going to use that?" Or I'm paraphrasing, but and the voice is actually our MCU Blade that's coming up. So really interesting that Kit Harington is going to be the Black Knight, a D-list Avengers character. I mean, you can say what you want about the character, whether he's cool or not. I think obviously MCU he'll be very different, but an interesting add into the MCU, and possibly showing up in the Blade movie to I don't know, cross swords with Blade or fight with Blade. I don't know. What do you guys? What do you think about Kit Harington being possibly in the Blade movie as the Black Knight? Johnny
I have
B.
no idea who the Black Knight is.
That's why I asked Johnny. He'll Johnny can maybe bring up some stuff because I know he's got knowledge. He's got at least a little knowledge of everything. I find Johnny does, and then you could just regurgitate what Johnny says and pretend it was your own.
I mean, it sort of makes sense in a sort of way. Like, I can't think off the top of my head of any, Black Knight Blade crossover type stuff. But I mean, Dane is kind of like the C-list scientist in the MCU. He's not on the Iron Man tier, he's not on the Hank Pym tier, he's not on the Reed Richards tier, but he's kind of on like that third tier science guy Avengers category. So I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense in a Blade universe where science does sort of play a bit more, factors into that, dealing with, what actually is vampirism and, that sort of thing. So I mean, I guess it could make sense if they want to go down that route. I don't know. I mean, I like Kit. Black Knight's, like you said, he's kind of you either have heard of him or you haven't. He doesn't have that crossover appeal. He's never been in. I don't think he's ever been in any of the cartoons, which is a statement in and of itself. I don't think he's ever been in. He's never been a featured character in any of the video games that have come out, and there's been a lot of them with a lot of very large rosters. So, I mean, I think the only game I can think of that the Black Knight is in, I think, is maybe the Strike Force mobile game. I think he's a character in that, and I mean, like, everybody's a character in that, so that's not exactly an accomplishment. So I don't, you know,
Yeah, I know. I don't even think he's in Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and there are like 50, 60 characters in that. So
he's definitely not a playable character in that. He might be one of the sort of background characters like you see in like Avengers Tower at some point, or in one of the like mini games like trivia or something. There's probably a question about him in one of them because there's a lot of obscure characters that they ask trivia questions about that make you go, "What?"
yep, no, exactly. Well, let me ask you this then, Tommy. Amelia Clarke is going to be in the Secret Invasion show. That's been confirmed. Now, the character that she's going to play is undetermined. It's probably, I believe, the same sort of character that Maria Hill is, except for she runs sword. I forget what her name is, but anyways, it's going to be a newer character to the MCU, another character that only more recent people. But what do you think of Amelia Clarke's acting, and do you think she's going to fit in the MCU?
I mean, it's kind of hard to refute her, right? Like, just for, where she's been, what she has on her resume, and all stuff like that. As far as what she'll end up doing, I just question if it'll almost be a waste of her, honestly. I mean, are they going to cast her for a Maria Hill type role? And I mean, from what we know, Maria Hill's going to have a bigger role in Secret Invasion. That's basically from what we understand. So she may have a halfway prominent role in this film, but like, think back Maria Hill in throughout the Infinity Saga. What was it, like one or two of the films since then? mostly small roles, right? Maybe a
Yeah.
couple scenes in one or two of the movies, and she pops up here and there in others, but it's only because of her, I guess, longevity throughout these films that people know who she is. That's the only reason.
Yeah, she's more of a character that people know from the comic books, and it's awesome to have the actress who a lot of people like from How I Met Your Mother. But yeah, she hasn't really done that much at all. So it might be interesting to see what she does in. I believe it's a show, not a movie, though. It's going to be
Yeah.
a show, Disney Plus show.
Mhm.
Will be interesting though, because if you know the Secret Invasion, the story, it had a lot to do with the Avengers, and it had almost all of them in it. And obviously, the show is not going to have, Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans and all these big time movie actors are not going to be in it. So it's going to be interesting how they adapt the story. I do believe from what it's been shown, there's a lot of Amelia Clark hanging out with the good guys in what we've seen for set photos. So she probably will be playing a good guy. Although Secret Invasion, you never know. Everyone could be a bad guy in disguise. So I don't know, what everybody in the audience knows about Secret Invasion. Basically, the Skrull characters are known to be on Earth and known to a lot of even Avengers ended up being Skrulls. Captain America ended up being a Skrull. Captain Marvel, I think, was a Skrull at one point. Jarvis, the butler, I think, was a Skrull. There was a lot of interesting, which one of us is real and which one of us is not. And so it's going to be that sort of deal. Should be an interesting show. Really exciting. And it's interesting that now it'll be 4 Game of Thrones actors that have appeared in the MCU as Peter Dinklage and wait, who's the other one? There's definitely 4.
Richard Madden.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because he was in the Eternals as well,
Yep.
along with Kit Harington.
This is going to be
really like that
the
movie Eternals,
production
by the
to
way. I
bring
don't know if I
on
said
for
that on air
Rambo,
already,
right?
but I did watch it, and even though it was kind of like not really that well received, I actually really liked it quite a bit. I don't know. You guys got any interesting points on the Eternals? Just quickly.
I haven't watched it yet.
No, you haven't watched it yet.
No.
It's kind of an epic tale of almost like it's almost like you're watching a tale about Greek gods or something like that, and it takes place over a long time. And I actually really liked it. I thought it was awesome, but lots of twists and turns.
I did not really like it.
You did not really like it. Okay.
No. Honestly, my background's religion and philosophy and stuff like that, and so I get really into that. And I really liked how they tried to tie these elements together, but honestly, they tried to do way too much in this movie. In my point of view, they tried to do way too much. They spread their energy way too thin, as with doing everything.
Yeah.
And but I'm not going to say the movie didn't have some redeemable or cool qualities. There were some moments, but honestly, I saw it, and I don't remember if I wrote this in the public chat or if it was a direct message to someone or what, but I basically said this movie is easily on the bottom end of the MCU movies for me, like one of the bottom few.
It's hard to rank. There's just so many hits in the MCU that it's hard to rank them. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call. This is something I do on the Rick and Morty fan show. Just check out who's in the chat here. So if you want to chat, I will announce who's here. Solid Saturn was in the chat. Adam Jeffrey was in the chat. We got Brad. We got Ken. We got Michael Stapp in the chat. We got Michael Myers in the chat, as always. Not saying very much every once in a while. But we got David Rain. We got Apollo. We got Toronto Freddy. Kenneth Grayley. We got Matt Whitfield. And Troy Grubb. Zach. I think I got everyone anyways. I don't know. Like to do that. I don't always acknowledge the chat all the time. We got Byron Weaver here as well. But it's nice to just hear your name in a roll call. Hey, we're all here. It's like we're doing the G.I. Joe roll call first, so you know who's in the episode. We will. We'll get back to the MCU later, I think. Oh no, we're going to talk about Batman later. But I would like to talk about the news that came out that 3 new Star Wars games are being developed by familiar names, which is awesome. It's going to be, I think, EA and Respawn. And also, one of the games is definitely going to be a new Jedi Fallen Order game, or Jedi, whatever they're going to call it, Fallen something else. Whatever the title is, it's going to be a sequel to that, and it's going to be made by the same character. Sorry?
Jedi Fallen again.
Yeah,
Jedi
Jedi.
Fallen and I can't get up.
Jedi fool me 7 times.
Yeah.
It's going to be something like that. I don't know. It's funny when they name things these days, when they name sequels and whatever, it's so predictable all the time. I'm like, oh, it's going to be something Order, or it's going to be Fallen something. It's like, it's pretty predictable, unless it's just Fallen Order 2. I don't know if that makes
It'll
any
probably
sense.
just be Fallen Order 2 with a
You
subtitle.
think so?
A subheader. Yeah, I mean, it's no different than, like an Uncharted game or any other game of that type that has, something in it. Like the Jedi Fallen Order is fine as like a series title, like because it's factual, like to the point that the Jedi haven't been, you know, revived. There's not, they're still a Fallen Order, so it makes sense as a series title, sort of like the old book series would have their titles, and then you'd have the whatever, Fate of the Jedi, and then whatever the title of that independent book was. It's Star Wars naming convention to do that.
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense. I get it. And yeah, they because it's Star Wars, and you don't want to say like, hey, it's Star Wars this. You want to kind of like, it's always been Star Wars the Old Republic. You're that's in that series, or now it's Star Wars the High Republic. It's they're trying to fit things into subcategories all the time, so that makes sense. But anyways, we're getting that. We're also getting a first-person shooter game and a strategy game. So what those are going to end up being, it could be another Battlefield type game. I don't know if, the last Battlefield game was panned in a lot of ways. It was still very popular, but there was a lot of memes out there, a lot of criticisms out there for all the things that you had to buy and go through, and the what do they call those things when you have to buy everything all the time? Microtransactions. Everybody was kind of angry about that, so I don't know if they'll go that way, if they'll rebrand that. The person working on it made the original Battlefront games, so
It's the third one that I'm sort of most excited for as a fan because of the studio that's tied to it. Not just Respawn, but specifically it's Bit Reactor working on the RTS game. And if you follow the game world, Bit Reactor as the name of a new company, which was formed by former members of the Firaxis team. And if you know Firaxis, you know that they've created 2 of the best real-time strategy franchises in gaming history. They are the minds behind Civilization, and they're the minds behind XCOM. That is a pedigree of intense quality, and if they can bring that to the Star Wars universe, I'm all for that. I don't know if you guys ever played it, but Empire at War was an amazing game in the early 2000s PC era, for real-time strategy games. That was just a lot of fun in that sort of Command and Conquer vein. That I would love to see a Civilization XCOM style Star Wars game, which I think lends itself extremely well, especially the XCOM style, which is something that's never been done before, where I think that lends itself very well to an XCOM style game where you could sort of put that back in the Clone Wars, and do something really great with that, where you're working a unit of clones, and you're going through the battles, and you can get different heroes to accompany you that have different techniques and skills. So you can have your Obi-Wans and your Anakins and your Ahsokas and all those other Jedis that are out there for different missions here and there. We're going up against the droids and
the Trade Federation,
the Separatist army, and all of those other characters that I think there's a huge potential there for a great game in that XCOM style, which is very easily parodied, like very easily copied and done effectively well. Like there's a game, Mutant Year Zero, it was an indie title on the Xbox. I'd never heard of it, never seen anything about it until it was in Game Pass, and it's basically just XCOM, only you play as like mutant animals, ducks and rabbits and pigs and that kind of stuff. But it's the same gameplay, same style. That just like, damn, this is XCOM in a different skin. I like this. It's fun. Bring that to the Star Wars universe, and there's just massive potential there for both an epic story and amazing gameplay.
Yeah, no, definitely. I remember playing Command and Conquer 2 Red Alert quite a bit. I remember playing Warcraft, before it was World of Warcraft, and really love those games. While we're talking about this, I'm going to get to Tommy B's opinion in a minute, but yeah, if you guys want to keep commenting on what kind of Star Wars game you'd like to see, I will read off some of your comments. Or we're a team of 3 right now, so we got a little bit extra time to follow the chat. So keep it going, guys, and we'll get to some of your comments. Tommy, which are you most excited about of the 3 projects, which is basically a first-person shooter, a story-built game, or a real-time strategy game? And also, since we've never really talked about real-time strategy games that I can think of, we haven't talked about StarCraft or anything. What's your experience with those types of games?
So, I'm someone who really enjoyed Jedi Fallen Order. So I would probably, be pretty hyped to get my hands on that, honestly. A first-person shooter. Star Wars shooters, they're hit or miss, right? So that's questionable how that'll go. Like Johnny said, though, a strategy game. I'm not someone who plays a strategy game every day, okay? I don't even think I have one currently. I've been having an urge for one, though, for quite a while. Especially Empire of War. I put quite a number of hours in Empire of War, the expansion, the mod, what was it called, Republic at War or whatever, where they brought the Clone Wars stuff in. But that was a fan-made mod. Yeah, I still question to this day. I have no clue why they didn't port that game. It just stayed landlocked on the PC. It never went anywhere else, and I just really, I wish I could. It's almost like Knights of the Old Republic, right? It's on every freaking console or device you have. You can play, all the way from the original Xbox, any subsequent Xboxes, your iPhone, probably soon your smart refrigerator. Who knows, right? I am excited to hear that we're getting some kind of new Star Wars strategy game, and I just hope they do some real justice for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely that's exciting because we haven't got one in a long time, and these other types of games we've gotten plenty of. Not always plenty of good, but plenty of tries.
A lot of people don't know, though, that was not the first Star Wars RTS. You had, like, what was it called? Galactic Battlegrounds. And there might have been another one in there, too. It might have been a sequel or something. I don't remember. I think they were they had, less success. They were much less known. But they're out there. They're probably floating around on Steam, honestly.
Oh, well, there's a million Star Wars games out there that people like. Unless you're a really big Star Wars fan, there's so many out there that, especially in the 90s, that came out that were hard to get your hands on, were, unknown, not, little known titles and things like that, yeah, like it's hard to go back. Like, I bet if you look up Star Wars video games, the list is going to be well over 100 games.
Totally.
You're probably not going to know them all.
Everybody knows Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast, and Jedi Knight Academy, but how many of those people have actually played like Dark Forces and Dark Forces?
I was gonna say, how many of them know that Dark Forces is the first game of that series?
Yeah.
I don't know all the games, like all the games in the series for sure. I've played a lot of them, but it's always fun to go back and watch. I like to watch YouTube videos on the games and be like, you know what, I'm probably never going to get a hang of this game, or a hand on this game from 1993 on the PC or something like that. But you can go back and look at them, see what they're like, see what the stories that came out of them are, and I always find that to be fun. Let's just go and check out some of the chat here on the Star Wars games related thing. Kevin says, I would not mind also seeing maybe someone make more new X-Wing PC style games like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, X-Wing Alliance. We're back in the 90s and try new versions of those. There have been lots of games that were based on piloting. We did have, of course, the Battlefront brought in the space battles, and they were pretty awesome. I actually really loved it. It was my favorite part of the new Battlefront or the Battlefront games was the flight combat, and then they brought us the new game, which I bought, Squadrons, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun, but I never really got into it too hard. It wasn't as accessible. It was hard to play, and it was more for expert gamers, in my opinion. And I'm not one of those, so.
It
we
didn't
had a lot
sell
of
particularly well. Was the problem? I mean,
Sorry?
So it didn't sell particularly well either.
No, I don't think it did, and I don't think it was marketed that well, to be honest, either, because I saw a lot of the stuff on.
Eventually, yeah. It started out digitally, and then there was eventually a physical release as well.
Yeah,
but
yeah, that's true.
It didn't. It was basically just the flight mode from Battlefront. It really wasn't that different than that. I don't think there was anything special added to it. Other than, I mean, it had a campaign of some sort, but beyond that, it was the same engine, the same everything, the same visuals. It just added, a campaign, and eventually it added the VR. But
the VR, I can tell you, I've only played the VR once because my sister has it, but it's phenomenal. If I had the VR, I probably would have put a lot more hours into that. It was mind-blowing to me that you could sit inside the cockpit and press a lot of individual buttons to get something to come up, but you have to have the VR for that. Solid Saturn also says Force Unleashed 3, which is a super popular opinion, almost as popular in my opinion as trying to get a third Knights of the Old Republic game. And Force Unleashed was an amazing story. Great video game, super fun, but kind of got cut from canon pretty quickly. It didn't last that long until it was cut from canon. So
I was just more the timing of its release into the market, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, it was only a couple of years before the Disney buyout when that game had come out.
So. Yeah, so it got chopped off, and that kind of cuts off interest for a lot of people. There's I think the people who go back and read the old canon books and things like that are the ones who have already got into them. I think most people who are into Star Wars now or newer fans are going to be like, I'm just going to go through the canon stuff. So it definitely suffered from that, and I think that's the reason we probably won't ever get a Force Unleashed 3. If anything, we'll get a reboot of the character and something else, but I honestly don't even think that's going to happen. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on Force Unleashed?
There's no real room for it in the canon anymore, I don't think. Like, the whole story has kind of been, truncated, and they filled in a lot of gaps in, the interim through, Fallen Order, through Rogue One, through Solo, that they started filling in these holes that, there isn't room for Darth Vader to have an apprentice anymore. Like, that's the entire purpose sort of the Force Unleashed, was to give Vader that apprentice to kind of, go after the remaining members after the Order, and they don't really need that because now there's oh god, what are they called? Inquisitors. Like he kind of takes the place of the Inquisitors in that regard, as being sort of Vader's arm in combat and doing things on the sly. And yes, they kind of raised him up to maybe have Vader take on the Emperor, but that never made sense in the canon because we knew how that story would play out. So it wasn't, there was no possibilities of anything being. It suffered from Rogue One syndrome to a degree. You know where the story has to end because this character does not exist in the in 4, 5, 6. We know Obi-Wan's never heard of him. He's never mentioned. He's never talked about. He doesn't exist. So obviously he's dead. Not a factor in the story going forward. So they can't, there's no hope for this. It's the same as the Rogue One characters. We knew from the jump. Like who was it? Was it Chirrut who said on one of the panels that everybody dies, and everybody was like, "Oh my god, everybody dies!" And meanwhile, everyone was just sitting there like, "Well, of course they do.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what else is gonna like? Of course they're gonna die. It's just a question of how,
yeah,
But so I mean, you can't fit a square peg in a round hole, and that's what they try to do. They filled in holes with the Force Unleashed, told a good story for the time that just didn't couldn't make the jump once the canon was truncated, because that was an era that had very few stories told in it at that point.
yeah.
The EU kind of went after. They jumped to the end. They didn't really go back and fill in holes in the middle. They went all the way back through the Old Republic, and eventually the Drew Carpenter story started filling in that history and backlog and created the Sith as we know it today through the Rule of Two and all of those things that were relevant to the story that would then come. But they never really filled in the the 3, 4 hole to a certain. Like, there were stories in that time period and the Clone Wars, but we didn't get near as much in that gap between 3 and 4 as we have now, to my knowledge. I mean, I'm
I
not.
know we have a lot of comic book in there now about Darth Vader as well, and yeah, I mean before that we had kind of like Shadows of the Empire, and that was about it.
The thing with
So
the comic books is in the last years of the Disney or excuse me, the Legends canon, if I remember correctly, they did start releasing more content that dealt with like
Mhm.
prequel era / right after type stuff, Darth Vader type stuff. I think there were a few comics that were going on at that point that ended up basically just missing the cutoff
Mhm.
of well, this is no longer canon. Like I know Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir, I'm pretty sure that's when it ended up staying canon. But I believe there was another Darth Maul series or two, maybe just happened just prior to that or something. They were cut. Um, Similar for Darth Vader.
awesome. I just want to reiterate now that we got the chat filled in with a little bit more people. Everyone's here visiting, and I just wanted to reiterate this point because we didn't have quite this crowd earlier. Um, we did get a whole bunch of new information about Halloween Ends today. We found out some interesting stuff. Obviously, Sean found out a lot of interesting stuff, and some of our sources gave us some goodies. So if you guys want to learn about that stuff, Sean is still going to be doing the Patreon show coming up soon. You can sign up for Patreon, or you can also you still have the option to super chat. It's not really our preferred thing anymore. If you don't, if you're already a Patreon member, you can go ahead and super chat. But if you plan on super chatting $5 every couple shows, then why not sign up for Patreon instead? Where you get some extra content, and we have lots of interesting Halloween End stuff there. So if anyone's visiting for the Halloween End scoops, we got those on our Patreon. Now I want to get to what I assume will take up the most of the show, and that's a 4-hour cut of the Batman has been screened to people. I don't think that it's not going to be a 4-hour movie in the theater. It's already been confirmed that it was almost 3 hours, I believe, for the theatrical release. But there was a 4-hour cut screened for people. I don't know if that was to find out what they liked or what they didn't like, but we're probably going to get, hopefully, on a DVD or physical media, 4K, all that good stuff. A 4-hour cut of the Batman, and I'm wondering because, like, for me, it's not always like more is good. Like, I always want things to just be good, whatever time they are. Is that going to be interesting? How would it be interesting? What would you want to see in that extra bit of 4 hours? I know, like myself, I don't think I would want to see 4 hours of Batman solving a crime. So there'd have to be something else. You have to go in the backstory of the Riddler, the backstory of Catwoman, I'll find a little bit more about Penguin because I don't think Penguin is going to get as much screen time as the other characters that I've mentioned so far. Maybe some Gordon background because we got a terrific actor playing Gordon around this time around. Although there's been some pretty terrific Gordons.
It's going to be just 2 hours of I am vengeance. Yeah. I am vengeance is the new evil dies tonight.
You know, if it's an hour of him beating up those clowns as viciously as we see in the trailer, it might actually be all right. But what do you guys think about a 4-hour cut of Batman? Do you think it's going to be okay, or do you think it's just way too much? I'll go to Tommy B first on this one.
I don't think it's ever going to see the public light of day. And also, I don't think I would go and see Batman for 4 hours, honestly. That's just too freaking long. Like, I'm somebody who loathes long movies in a movie theater because I don't want to go to the friggin' bathroom.
You didn't go to see Return of the King extended edition in theaters? In Lord of the Rings, that is. It was like 5 hours long.
Nope. Nope.
I get that. It definitely would be hard. It's not the same as maybe Zack Snyder's Justice League, which was like quite a long film when you got down to all the parts. But you know, you had a lot of characters to delve into there, and a lot like it definitely expanded on the story in that one. Whereas I think we'd be pushing a lot of extra stuff into this one. What do you think, Johnny?
I think, dear God, please no, dear God, please no. Um, I once this news came out, I actually, hit the Google machine and looked it up, and the longest theatrical superhero movie, period, is Endgame. 3 hours and 1 minute. That's it. Okay, like obviously the Snyder Cut topped in at 4 hours, but that was only digital release. It never came out in theaters, so it I'm sorry, but I love superhero movies, but 3 hours is my max. To be a movie longer than 3 hours, you need to be in the best film of all time category to keep me engaged that long. The Godfather 2 tops north of 3 hours, one of the best movies I've ever seen. I can live with that. There's a few other films that top of that. I looked this up just to run this out. Like, like Gone with the Wind is 4 hours. Do we want a Gone with the Wind Batman movie? Nobody's gonna sit through a theater and watch that, because it's not feasible. Like 4-hour movies they used to be pretty prevalent in like the 50s and 60s. But do you know what they had in them that movies today don't have? An intermission. Do you know why? Because the average human cannot hold their bladder for 4 hours. Like it's ridiculous that the thought of even putting out a 4-hour theatrical film at the start is ridiculous. Like extended cuts, okay, that's one thing. But if you're going to see an extended cut, it's because you are so invested in the film that I'm here for this. I signed up for this thing. And you pointed out, like Revenge of the King, as a beyond 4-hour extended cut. Okay, but if you're watching that, it's because you're a huge fan of the movies. You've already bought in, But I mean, for me, I'm not signing up to do that in a theater without an intermission. But if they want to put an intermission, freshen my drink, evacuate the bladder, all that, just get up and walk around. Even, what I mean? Like, that's 4 hours of sitting on your ass.
I think this will be I think the theatrical cut has already been confirmed to be just under 3. So
I mean, that's perfectly fine. 3 hours is like it's the top end, for a movie. Like, if you go past that 3-hour mark and you're not into the credits, like I don't know specifically if like the runtimes I read included credits time, because with an Avengers movie you kind of have to include those because of the post-credit scenes and stuff like that. So, it's just 3 hours is at the high end of a theater experience.
Yeah.
Because you start drinking your pop when when the lights go down, and by the time you add in, that extra half hour of trailers and stuff, suddenly that 3 hours turns into 3.5 hours, which gets you close to 4 hours. You've been sitting in there because you've probably been in the theater for anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes before that. So you're already at, close to 4 hours in the theater. Add in an extra hour to that. No, thank you. That, puts you in the theater for, a quarter of your day by the time you're said and done. From the time you walk in the theater doors to the time you walk out, you've probably been there for 6 hours.
Yeah, it also kind of cuts in on the amount of times that can be shown that day. I mean, obviously
Absolutely.
it does.
You don't make money with a 4 hour movie. You don't make money with a post 3 hour movie in this day and age. You want the quick turnaround.
Yeah.
You want theaters to be able to maximize their showings. Like, that's why the part one, part two thing became such a thing. When people were bringing books to the theaters and realizing there's a lot of story to tell here. We need to break this down.
Yeah.
Like Lord of the Rings. If that, I honestly think if that had been a thing when Peter Jackson had first made the Lord of the Rings, every single one of the original Lord of the Rings trilogy would have been 2 movies. Because
It makes sense.
you end up with that, close to 4.5 hour cut. I don't think any of the 3 extended cuts are shorter than 4 hours and 20 minutes.
I think the first one is. I know they get gradually longer. I'm pretty sure it's like 3.5, 4.5, and a 5.5 hours.
I mean, even that, even if the first one is the longest, it's only one part. If you split up part 2 and part 3 into, 2 hours and 15 minutes compared to, what we'd get later, that makes perfect sense. Like, Endgame, cut that into 2 movies. Deathly Hallows, cut that into 2 movies, and still left a crap ton of stuff in the book that should have been in the movie.
Yep.
I mean, was Breaking Dawn the last Twilight movie? You get 2 parts out of that. Like, it's a thing that, the theater goers don't want to watch 4-hour movies. They don't. We don't have the attention span for that anymore. It's just as a
Definitely, I
general
know.
populace. How many teenagers do you think can go 4 hours without looking at their phone?
I know. Actually, I've seen that. That's run really rampant in the theaters that I've been at. Was quite often people staring at their phones. And last time I went there, it was funny. I saw an adult who couldn't stop looking at his phone, and he was there with his 2 kids who looked to be 10, 11-ish. And it was like,
Mhm.
for fuck's sakes, pay attention to your family and the movie. Like, watch the movie with your kids. But
Mhm.
that's that's beyond the show. But man, like, it drives me crazy when people don't pay attention to their lives.
Mhm.
I don't know. I can be. I mean, I think we all end up diving into our phones a little bit too often sometimes. But like, when you're doing important things with your life, when you're going taking your kids out somewhere, or you're going taking a movie, or you're doing something, and you're not tired out or whatever, like, pay attention to life.
Mhm.
Anyways, whatever. Not a topic for today.
Yeah, it's still relevant to what we're talking about.
It's definitely relevant, and that's definitely
Mhm.
why we can't have these long movies unless we're so invested, like we were in Endgame, which was 10 years in the making film. So it's a little bit different that way, but
I mean, that's a prime example, right? I mean, one of those films topped at 3 hours, and it was a 2-part movie.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah, yeah, I'm not sure if I would be interested. I mean, I'd obviously watch it. But I'm a huge Batman fan, so I'd obviously get around to doing it, just like I did with the Justice League Snyder cut. But
I never got around to watching that.
I actually quite enjoyed it. I thought it really did improve on the entire film, and
I had
especially
too
the
much
final
issues with the
sequence.
entirety of that canon by that point. I was pretty much Man of Steel killed me. Like, I couldn't. You turn Superman into a movie and into a murderer in your first outing. This is Superman. Batman as a murderer, I can okay. He's always kind of been that knife edge where he could go either way, and you'd still believe it.
Yeah, he's dark
Superman,
and gritty.
truth, justice in the American way does not involve slicing a man's head off.
I know a lot of people kind of took issue with that for sure, and I wasn't a big fan of that movie either. Let's get into our fun topic, and then maybe if we have some extra time, we'll talk a little bit of wrestling, or some one of those things that Tommy really enjoys. Um, so let's get into it. We're gonna do we'll do you know what? Let's go one each. Yeah, let's go one each so we can kind of go through these movies and talk about them. We're gonna do 3 movies each. Three movies that we like and we are not going to apologize for. This would be like Sean telling us that the prequel trilogy was amazing and everybody knows it was crap. And I mean, as much as I like watching any Star Wars movie, I've recently watched Rise of Skywalker again just because my son wanted to watch it. And I was like, yeah, it's still Star Wars. I'll still watch it. But, some movies you like and you're just like, people are like, how can you like that? Like,
Because I do.
I don't know. It happened. I saw the review. Like, I saw the Rotten Tomatoes. I saw it only got 15%. I saw that it didn't make money. I saw that it was a flop. I liked it. And here we're going to go with, this is one of the biggest superhero flops of all time. And I actually I liked the movie. I still watch it. I liked the Daredevil movie. I liked Daredevil with Ben Affleck. A lot of people hated it. It got so much flack. It's definitely very corny. It's very cheesy. A lot of people point to the weird Mortal Kombat type of moment when he fights Elektra at a playground with children, and it kind of centers the screen as if it was a Mortal Kombat fight, and it's kind of just playful. It's almost like when Batman fights Catwoman, just kind of playing around or whatever. A lot of people also point to the chemistry between Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner not really being that great. Corny Colin Farrell kind of put in on Bullseye, really weird looking tattoo on his head thing. I thought Bullseye was awesome. I loved how he was able to flick a peanut around a corner and put some old grandma to sleep on an airplane. I love that he was pissed off. He never missed. Kingpin, I thought, was great in it. I really loved Kingpin. Michael Clark Duncan. I'm so bad with these names. This is the hardest part about hosting for me. I thought Michael Clark Duncan Kingpin was awesome, and I thought Ben Affleck as Daredevil was awesome. I thought he looked cool. The fighting was great. I don't know why people hate it so much, but it's so much so hated.
I also really like that movie.
I didn't hate it like some people did. It was what it was. It was not good, not great, not as bad as some people. I mean, at the time it came out, I was like 14. So it was action. I was there for it.
It was in the early age of superhero movies when they weren't untouchable and they were still kind of for nerds before nerds took over the world. Before nerds became all over the place.
If we want to loop back to this as like a topic, we could. But like, I was just having a conversation with my wife the other night about like, isn't it so weird that Spider-Man wasn't put on the big screen until like the early 2000s? And of course, why is that? Because Marvel and DC, they almost went freaking bankrupt in the 80s.
Completely bankrupt, yeah.
Yeah.
A few times.
Yeah. Oh, they did actually declare bankruptcy.
They were doing bad in the 80s.
Literally selling off the movie rights for X-Men and Spider-Man are what kept them afloat in the late 90s.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, those movies really saved the day, and then Marvel saying they were going to do the Iron Man movie on their own because Iron Man was like a D-lister. Well,
nobody
like
wanted
C-lister. It. He was like a C-lister at the time, and
they got Robert Downey Jr., who was a actor recovering in the same way that Mickey Rourke was, had a career renaissance after getting in some trouble. So yeah, everything was really a big gamble, and they got saved that way. So yeah, we could definitely talk about that in the future. But I want to hear Johnny's first movie that he will not apologize for. Okay. I won't apologize for this. It's definitely it's one of those ones that you almost feel like you have to because it's that kind of movie. First one for me, 2001. I was young. It was my sense of humor at the time. Freddy Got Fingered. It's just, I love it, and I won't apologize for loving it. Like, to this point, my brother and I will occasionally just break out doing the "Daddy, would you like some sausage?" scene, just for pure shits and giggles, because it tickled our funny bone at the time. I was like, you know, 13, 12, 13 years old when it came out. Like, that is exactly when potty humor becomes your favorite type of humor at that time of life, and it was perfect. It was exactly that. I mean, the cast was
Rip Torn's in
eh.
it, right? Rip
It was
Torn is his
Yeah,
dad.
Rip Torn was in it. Harlan Williams, Eddie K. Thomas, and Anthony Michael Hall were also in it. Like, so the cast was good. Like, I mean, they were like D-list people, but they were the good D-list players. And it was funny. Tom Green was at the height of his popularity. This was just coming off of uh is it Road Trip? Is another one that I love, but I don't think it's quite hated enough to have been on this list, or it would have been. I love Road Trip, but
Um,
I don't think it's hated enough to make
oh,
this list.
I like Road Trip quite a bit. That's a classic to me. However, Freddy Got Fingered, I remember seeing the trailer for it and being like, this looks fucking hilarious. But I
Yep.
remember it was one of those movies where I felt like everything that was actually funny was in the trailer, and when I saw the movie,
Oh, very
I
much
didn't
so.
like it. I
Very
didn't
much
at all
so.
like the movie. I remember seeing it and being like, this is terrible. And I don't know if I even got through it, but it was at the height of the Tom Green just doing stupid stuff,
Yep.
which is funny because that's super popular today. I mean, even if you just watch TikTok videos and things like that, like people just doing stupid stuff like that. I feel like Tom Green uh,
He was ahead of his time in a certain
ahead
way.
of his
Like,
time. Yeah, he
he was he
like
was
the
definitely raunchy. Like,
yeah
he would, but the type of humor was definitely sort of ahead of its time.
yeah yeah, and actually his podcast, his web series or whatever you want to call it, that he had before, where it was kind of like a talk show, is hilarious. But and that was an early one too. That was out before podcasting was super popular.
I had a pretty funny appearance on Drew Barrymore's show a few months ago. Where they were talking about inviting your ex to your wedding, and he's like, "Didn't happen to me."
I'm gonna assume that Tommy B has not seen Freddy Got Fingered because it came out way
That's a
before.
safe bet.
Never
It came
seen
out. It came out before and was not very highly regarded. So, Tommy B, what are you not going to apologize for liking?
So honestly, I don't know if this should be on this list or not because I've heard so many people talk shit about it, but people just talk shit about everything. Um, it's been on. I've talked about it before. I've had a fascination, a real appreciation for this film ever since I was a little kid. Came out in 1996. Mars Attacks.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that belongs on this list, but
You don't think so?
I don't. I think that's definitely a cult classic.
I don't know, dude. I hear
mean,
this movie torn to shreds all
It kind
the
it kind
time.
it fits into that. I mean, I could see why you'd think that it would fit on this list. I personally don't think it does, because it falls in that cult classic. It does get a lot of love, but it does also get a lot of hate. So I could see, I wouldn't put it on this list, but I can see why you did.
it was a very cheesy movie, but I loved Mars Attacks. I thought it
Mhm.
was awesome. It had a crazy cast of interesting characters. I actually really liked the movie. I thought it was great, but it was definitely super cheesy, and there were definitely people who watched it and were like, "What the fuck is this?" Like,
You fucking make their heads blow up by playing old people.
The cast
music?
was amazing in it too. Like,
yeah, it was great. I loved the idea that they were gonna try and be friends with the aliens, and the aliens were like, "Fuck you guys!" Like, they got scared of the bird and they started freaking out, shooting everybody. Everybody turns into like a neon orange or neon green skeleton when they get blasted away, which is
peak Tim
interesting.
Burton. It was peak Tim Burton.
Yeah, and they ended up
Tim Burton was involved in
defeating
that.
them with really old, crazy yodeling music that would make their heads explode, which was funny too. James Brown was in the movie. Jim Brown, sorry, was in the movie.
Tom Jones was in the movie. He was the music.
Tom Jones was in the
Yeah.
movie.
I don't know if I ever knew that Tim Burton directed that.
Yeah.
I probably saw it at some point, but just scroll past it, looking at Nightmare
Well,
Before Christmas or something.
it wasn't his dark black and white type style, like
No, God, no.
it wasn't like his Batman movies or like those sorts of things. Anyways, apparently Jeremy says I yodel out my butt, and for him to know that would be really interesting.
Okay.
I want to get to a couple of comments here that I thought were hilarious, especially. So, well, this one wasn't hilarious, but I have a comment on it. Zach says, another film I hold no shame in saying I adore is the 2017 My Little Pony film. It's a franchise I recently got into as of last December, and I loved every second of the show, the movie, and being no exception. I took my daughter to go see the My Little Pony movie for I don't know which one it was, but anyways, it was one of the ones that went to theater, and I quite liked it. And the story behind My Little Pony is actually pretty cool. There's quite a few interesting things. I'm not a brony like Zach has announced.
Story or like the story behind the making of the franchise.
Sorry.
He's trying to figure out if you deep dove the brony canon.
Yeah, I am a little bit.
I don't know. I don't know very much about the whole brony thing. I know what they are. They're guys who like My Little Pony, and I know that they're all. I know there's a lot of really weird stuff out there as well. But I don't really know too much about that. However, I was gonna say, I actually found that it was pretty interesting universe when I had watched them with my daughter. But I did not get into them on my own,
learn
unfortunately.
a little bit about the My Little Pony stuff from, I guess, a creation point of view. Netflix is the Toys That Made Us series has an episode for My Little Pony. And when they do that stuff, because they did Star Wars toys, He-Man, they did all that stuff. They actually go behind the scenes, and you hear about the creation of the brand. You see associated TV shows. You see it's not just the pieces of plastic that kids played with. They go deep dive, and they do that for My Little Pony, and they talk a lot about how most of their show attempts and all were just utter shit and failures.
I've watched I've watched that entire series. I love that series because I'm a big action figure collector, as most people can see. And you can't even see 1% of it behind me. So, yeah, that not only is that series great, but the movies that made us is pretty good. And there's a Halloween. I believe the first episode is a Halloween one, which is really cool. Awesome making of the first Halloween movie, and tells you that it was made by like 20 or 30 people, and I don't know how accurate a lot of the information is. I'm sure there's a lot of people here who would be like, "Well, this wasn't true and that wasn't true." But it was
you're
very
talking
interesting.
About the movies that made us now.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, yeah. No, I was talking before the toys one.
Yeah, I started off with that and then I transitioned. But you were looking down. I don't know if you're like playing with your belly button or something.
They made these shoes all the same.
I always just assume that Tommy's looking down. He's just playing with his belly button or something. Like he's just.
What the fuck?
Fucking...
Well, I mean, at least that's what you think he's doing, because that could have gone way worse.
He's just fucking picking out lint, and he's like,
"No, it's the positioning of my camera. It is."
Yeah. So yeah, interesting there. And then the other comment that I saw here that I was really interested in, that was Zach, by the way. Where is this comment about? Oh, Toronto Freddy says, Fandom Empire, James Cameron was signed on to do a Spider-Man movie for Canon Films, but Masters of the Universe basically bankrupted the company, which I thought was an amazing comment, because my second movie that I will not apologize for not only liking, but absolutely loving, I have no idea why the Masters of the Universe movie with Dolph Lundgren as the lead is not like universally loved by everyone, and did not spawn sequels, and did not like I feel like everyone should know about this movie. I think it's amazing. It's so great. I think I've talked about it before. Frank Langella is an amazing Skeletor. He's so good. He looks good. Uh, like the costumes and everything are great. Basically, as an armor, like an army of black stormtroopers, which I just always thought was amazing. Like he just has these really cool looking. It almost looks like they repurposed the Death Star gunner outfit um, to make into a bunch of troops for the Masters of the Universe. I think it's very heartfelt. I loved it. The action's great. Dolph Lundgren is not a great actor, but he's fucking boys. He ever ripped and cut and looks amazing for He-Man. I mean, unless you're going to get Brock Lesnar in the title role, I don't know who you're going to get to show off muscles like that. So, I love that movie. I thought it was great. I think the effects are great, and I will never apologize for thinking that movie's amazing. I don't know what happened. I don't know why nobody. I really don't understand why this movie didn't get over, I guess, as you would say. Do you guys have any memories or anything of this movie?
I don't even think I've ever seen it.
It's so
Yeah,
good.
it was before it came out before I was even born. Okay,
Did
it
it?
was 87, wasn't it?
87. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm really old. I forgot.
Yeah, yeah, you're really old.
I also
I'm
never
older.
got into the He-Man universe at all. Like, because I mean, the cartoon predated me. It wasn't really on when I was a kid. By that point, it was like Ninja Turtles and and that Power Rangers. Those were my Saturday morning stuff. Batman the animated series. Those were my Saturday mornings. I didn't have He-Man or any of those kind of things. So my 80s cartoon knowledge came later, like with the advent of like Teletoon in Canada and you
Yeah.
know those sort of things. So I never saw He-Man ever. So it doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
makes
can
sense. That makes
chime
sense.
in same view, right? Like He-Man was never a friggin' thing for I like to say my generation, but whatever, right? Like it just wasn't there. Um doesn't mean I didn't know it's, a cult classic type of brand sort of thing. I like to often relate it to Ghostbusters, honestly, because I don't feel like Ghostbusters was around like when I was growing up. Maybe one of the cartoons, maybe.
There's always a
I mean,
He-Man
I
and
guess
a
your generation
Ghostbusters,
would have
but
been like
not the
Extreme Ghostbusters
yeah.
would have been on
Yeah.
when you were a kid, I think, Tommy.
When
Yeah,
was
I
it
don't know.
airing?
I know that
Extreme
He-Man
Ghostbusters, I think, would have been like mid 90s. I want to
He-Man
say like
had like a
96,
2001
97.
show that was really
I
good,
was
I
born
think.
in the mid '90s.
I know that's what I'm saying. Like Extreme
Okay.
Ghostbusters would have been around when
Okay.
you were a kid, but you post date, the Rio Ghostbusters, which was just ending when I was a kid.
Okay.
But
All
I
right,
loved
well,
Ghostbusters the movies, so I I had that going for me.
another comment. I got Toronto Freddy. Another comment here. He doesn't need to apologize for any movie he loves. That's that. I mean, that's true.
I mean, that's the
I
whole
mean,
purpose of this list,
I
right?
title. Yeah, I don't think Johnny. Like I haven't heard Johnny apologize for anything ever. So I'm not too worried about.
If I like it, I like it. I mean, I can tell you that I think yours. I think it's garbage. I think it's trash. But
Yeah.
that's it. That's what I think.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't. My opinion shouldn't change your opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I
I
mean,
mean,
my
that's the
facts can
title of
change
the.
your facts, but my opinions should never change your opinions, unless you actually agree with me. In which case, they can, but they shouldn't. I
I
mean,
think sometimes you hear enough of an opinion, it
Hmm.
kind of does help sway you a little bit.
oh, it can
But
sway you. Like it can help you sort of be like the foundation for your changed opinion. Like, you bring some interesting points to this, and I'll have to look at them further, and then you can change your mind.
yeah,
But
yeah.
there shouldn't be like, me saying your movie sucks shouldn't change the fact that you enjoy it. I mean,
Yeah. No, fundamentally, like, yeah, if I say like, oh, my favorite color is red, and Johnny's like, red sucks.
well,
I'm like,
blue,
oh
blue,
yeah,
blue is a far superior
it
color to
does
red. What are you
suck.
talking about?
Yeah, that things like that. But anyways, whatever. But I mean, that's the title of what we're doing because I thought it would be an interesting
And it's
segment
fun because
title.
everybody's
But
different, right? I mean,
I don't think any of our personalities here on the network are ever really apologizing. We're normally fighting to the death with each other over it. So.
until somebody says, "Okay, that's enough." Next topic.
Yeah. Well, and on that, let's get. I said that was my movie. Now,
Yeah,
your second movie.
assuming we're going in the same order, yes.
Yeah.
My next one, again, early 2000s. It tickled me in a way that I just the Master of Disguise is just a god awful movie, and I love it. I just love it. You know, like there's so much in that movie that is still sort of quotable in this house. Like to me, I still break out the turtle. Like in 10 years, I would do the turtle just for no reason at all, and just I even had the voice for a long period where I could, break out that Dana Carvey. Am I not turtly enough for the Turtle Club? And I love those kind of things. The slapping robot. Still break that out on occasion with my brother. Start. Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? Just slap each other in the face while the other person's just laughing because it's funny to us. And Devlin Bowman's laugh until he farts gimmick. I mean, it's hilarious because you can sort of relate to that in a certain way. Everybody's done it where they just laugh and then all of a sudden they rip one and it's just even funnier.
I
And I hold no, I'm not going to apologize for love. I love that movie. I've seen it more times. I've seen it more times than Dana Carvey has. I know it better than Dana Carvey at this point, probably.
oh man,
I love that movie so much.
I love Dana Carvey. I really love Dana
Mhm.
Carvey's SNL stuff, and obviously being Garth was awesome.
Oh yeah.
But man, not only that movie is so bad. It's really really bad, and probably knocked his career in being
Oh, it killed him. It killed
yeah.
his
It
career.
it definitely killed his leading man
Oh,
role
absolutely.
totally. Um, that's the perfect movie for this list, though. I
Yeah.
love the selection. The one of the memories I have of this movie that's really funny is that when you used to go for TV Guide, we used to, when we were really old people, we had a TV Guide channel.
Yeah.
So instead of just pressing guide and getting all the whatever, we had to go to a channel. It was like channel 64, and it
Something
would
like
just
that.
like rotate, telling you what was on, like as if you were scrolling on the thing. I'm sure we have lots of old people who remember that.
Yeah.
I remember
Um,
that. That was around when I was a kid.
it used to list the star rating for the movies. And I remember being like, why? Like, I remember seeing this movie go by and it didn't have the star rating for it. I was like, I thought it was a movie. It's because the movie was rated 0 stars.
Yeah.
It was the first time I'd ever seen that. So it would be like, movies would go by and they would be like, oh, Halloween 4 is on. It's got 2.5 stars. And I don't want everybody to yell at me, but
I mean,
the
for the
star
purpose of this, I
rating,
pulled up like the Rotten Tomatoes, like 1% on the tomato meter for the
yeah,
Master
yeah,
of
yeah.
Disguise. And yes,
Wait,
Freddie,
tomato
that was
meter? You don't
Brent
call it the
Spiner was
tomatometer?
Devlin Bowman in Master of Disguise.
Oh,
So
okay,
yes.
perfect. Yeah. Brett Spiner is awesome. I love him.
Oh, he really is. I love him.
But yeah, no, perfect. Even though I think that movie is dog shit terrible and I've never gotten through the whole thing, that's a perfect movie for this list. I love that. I absolutely good pick. Let's move on to this guy down here.
Just me, huh?
What's your number 2 movie?
Actually, your Daredevil pick made me kind of jogged my memory, honestly. Threw something else on here. Ghost Rider. I honestly didn't even know until like a year or two ago that this movie is generally pissed on. I just didn't know. I've always really appreciated it. Now, I will say, I think there's a sequel to it. I've never seen it, and I'm pretty sure that one's even worse.
Oh boy, is
really,
it?
I really love this movie. The whole Ghost Rider character, fan freaking tastic. Wish was appreciated a little more. Could see it pop up again.
Yeah, no, I actually liked the Ghost Rider, the first movie.
The first one was okay.
The first
Second
one was okay.
oh boy.
It suffered from having really bad villains in it, and it's funny. The villain is actually the one who plays Blackheart is actually on the show that me and Sean are watching now. What's that show about fucking cowboys that we're watching right now?
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. Yeah, he's actually on Yellowstone now, and he's phenomenal in that. But the bad guy was terrible in that. However, I love the Ghost Rider character. I loved that he was obsessed with M&Ms. I think it was Skittles or M&Ms, and that he liked watching old cartoons. And he was a very quirky character that they made him in there. The transformation of Ghost Rider was awesome. Him fucking giving people the finger and driving off was awesome. I thought a lot of that movie was really good, but I do remember it getting the same sort of reception that Daredevil did. And the second movie, I have tried to watch 4 times, and I have never made it past the half an hour mark.
No.
So I don't know why. I know I tried to watch it once when I was in a hotel, and it was like, what can you watch when you're in a hotel and you're limited with your channels? I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. I gave it a shot in the first time. Justin, this list is 3 movies that we are not going to apologize for liking. So shit movies that we like anyways. Yeah, but the first Ghost Rider I saw it in theater. I actually saw it in theater by myself, which I don't see very often, but like sometimes when I'm in a very pissy mood, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to the movie theater, and then everyone just leaves me alone, and I think that's what this was the case for. And I remember loving it. So
as far as trying to watch a movie in a hotel or whatever, my comment to that would be like, what hotel, what chain? Like it varies. Just the friggin' TV you have, probably.
Well, I know when I go to an American hotel, I got fucking 30 channels of sports.
Yeah,
I always find it's weird, and I'm a big sports fan, but I have no idea how you guys watch like 13-year-olds play softball. Like I don't understand why that's on TV, but man, like it's crazy. You guys are crazy, way crazier about sports than I am.
Question too. I mean, this country, I'm pretty sure, is the country that invented the idea that it's a sport to have cars go round and round in a circle on the radio and TV. So
it was a good thing Sean's not here for that.
Yeah, well. Then again, tabletop pool and all that's also considered a sport as far as the TV guide is concerned. So
I'll point out that ESPN airs the Nathan's hot dog eating contest every year.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's just crazy. There's like 13 ESPNs and it's crazy. I mean, I think we have in Canada we have like 5 TSNs, but a lot of time they're playing the same thing.
3 out of the 5 are typically playing the same thing.
Yeah, so it's not really, we don't really have that much. And then we have Sportsnet, which is 3 channels maybe, or maybe 4 now, and same thing. They're
three channels and then the regional variants.
They're often playing the same thing, so we're not getting the crazy amount that you guys are. I guess that's back to me.
Last one.
Oh, I know which other one I was going to bring up. Halloween 5. And being on Fandom Empire, there are some people who are okay with Halloween 5. And I've talked about this movie so much, so I won't get into it too much, and I won't ask for you. I know your guys, we know everyone's opinion on it, but I just had to put it on this list, especially since everyone loves talking Halloween here because we're big Halloween fans. I don't understand why people hate Halloween 5 as much as they do. I understand that it's not the best Michael Myers. The mask is weird. Using a few different weapons is weird. I like the characters. I don't mind the characters that everyone hates. And it's got some great Donald Pleasance parts in it. It's got some really crazy, unhinged Donald Pleasance freaking out on children, and I don't know. I think it's a great movie. I think that these horror movies that have 10 different versions and whatever, like they get to be very cheesy, but if you like the whole franchise, then you got to accept the cheese a little bit too. And honestly, I thought it was great. Everyone wants to remake Halloween 5 and wishes that we got a totally different version. I love Halloween 5. It's one of the most rewatchable Halloween movies to me. I don't know. If I'm going to do a watch through, Halloween 5 is definitely going to be included. But don't get me started on that fucking terrible Halloween Resurrection. That won't make any of my lists. I know there's going to be people out there who like that. I think Solid Saturn already said um, they're a fan of that movie, but yeah, can't do it. So yeah, Halloween 5 is going to be on my list. I'm not apologizing. I'm never going to apologize. And you know what I do? Every time we're in a chat here, we're in a chat there, someone says something, I always say the same thing. Halloween 5 is a fucking masterpiece. And I'll leave it at that.
All right, that brings it to me. And I told you guys, I think it was when we were off air that, my list had Tom Green and Tom Arnold. Well, we've had the Tom Green. Now it's time for the Tom Arnold. And I would not be surprised if I'm the only person on this panel and possibly even in this chat room who's ever seen and or heard of this film. It is a 1996 film. It is called The Stupids. It is just awful. It is terrible. It is the premise of the film is that they're stupid. It's based off of I think a book series, a kids book series, but Tom Arnold's character is named Stanley Stupid, and he is insistent that that the post office is sending him mail from a villain named Sender. Okay, Sender is a villain. So he and he's also convinced, like, this is the real premise, is that he is convinced that someone is stealing his trash every night. Puts out the trash and someone is stealing it. So he stays out one night, pretends to be a tree, and follows the trash collection, and ends up at like a weapons smuggling ring, and his family helps bring it. His family follows and ends up following and helps them tear down this weapons smuggling ring, and this brings us to the classic song. Most people have heard the song, but they've never seen the movie. This is "I'm My Own Grandpa." Tom Arnold sings that on like a fake Jenny Jones Maury style show where he pretends to be his own grandpa and sings the song, and it's awful. It's amazing. I mean, I was like 8, 9 years old when I first saw it. I saw it on VHS. I don't even think it was out on theaters. I think it was just a straight to VHS film. I got it in like a 99-cent bin or something. I think it was at like Giant Tiger, and like just watched it and just thought it was freaking hilarious, stupid, and I enjoyed it. I still do. I mean, I haven't watched it in quite a long time at this point because it's not exactly readily available on anywhere. So
I do remember this movie coming out. I think it's weird because my memory is so bad, but my memory of things like this is weirdly really good. I remember seeing it on my dad used to live with a guy who had like the movie channels, like the pay-per-view type movie channels, and I remember seeing it on there and asking my dad if we could watch it, and him being like, Tom Arnold's in it. And I was like, I didn't even know who Tom Arnold is, and he's like, we're not watching it. So that's my entire experience with the film. I believe he's wearing like one of those carnival step right up hats.
yeah, straw
like
hat
that on the cover. And he just
bright
has
yellow
like a dumb
suit.
look on his face.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I know of the movie. But it
It's
sounds
awful.
like the dumbest fucking thing ever, so it probably belongs on this list.
Oh, absolutely.
Tommy, have you seen The Stupids? 0%.
The title sounds familiar. Maybe. But, like, just thinking about the movie, that sounds so fucking stupid.
That's the whole point, though.
I know.
I mean, they still make movies that are dumb for the sake of dumb. Like that's definitely still a thing. Like they gotta. That's what the Fast and the Furious franchise is for.
Ouch.
No, I kid. Yeah, no, that's a very, very interesting pick. We got our last pick here, and then I'll read a couple from the chat, just because the chat's doing well. I like the chat today. Yeah, Tommy, your third movie.
So I don't know. I'm really starting to question this article as being full of a bunch of shit. Honestly, um, early, I had said beforehand like it's a line I say, right? Like I don't know a whole lot of stupid, shitty movies because I don't waste my time watching stupid, shitty movies. Um, so I ended up, for the hell of it, saying, well, I've seen more animation probably than anyone else on this panel. I mean, I just love animation. Doesn't matter. Uh, so I went ahead and Googled, like, you know, most hated animated movies or whatever, this and this. And I'm starting to think this list is a bunch of shit because they have a lot of, like, the original Pokemon movies on here. I know. I know. But honestly, I'm pretty content with just saying number two as like a movie I will say, I enjoyed as a kid. I'm not going back and rewatching it, but the original Yu-Gi-Oh! The movie. I grew up playing the card game. I was very good at it. I actually won a few big events, I'm pretty sure. Nothing like championships or anything like that. But yeah, and they came out with a movie when I was, what the fuck grade was I in? I don't even remember. Did like a birthday thing at one point for it. Went and saw it another time. So I saw it like 2 or 3 times in the movie, and I enjoyed it. But honestly, I'm seeing on the internet this is like the most hated animated movie of all time. And some of the fucking reviews are just hilarious. Like it's a hour and a half, 2 hour, whatever, commercial. It's it's uh it's just fluff. It's fucking hilarious. It's just designed to sell product. And honestly, that's what, animation was originally made for, to fucking sell product,
Yeah,
to sell action figures.
that's the start of cartoons. The start of cartoons was they were commercials, like they actually were
Yeah,
commercials, and then they got longer,
absolutely.
and then they got longer, and they were all like the toy lines were already made up, and then we're like, okay, make a cartoon for me, and so we can sell these things, and that was
There's
definitely
He-Man. Yep.
how it worked. That
There's
that was how, yeah, He-Man and GI Joes and all those things that all those things that happened, all those cartoons around that time, were made to sell like wave after wave of action figures, like the X-Men figures I have sitting in front of me right here. I know I've shown them on screen a few times. There was 101 of them. Like, there's not a lot of action figures lines that are throwing out 100 action figures these days, and yeah, that's the way that they did it at the time. I don't
You're not
remember the Yu-Gi-Oh movie because I did like Pokemon, but when Yu-Gi-Oh came around, I was already kind of a teenager, so I wasn't into it at all. And I
Sure.
remember the main character's voice being way fucking deeper than it needed to be for what looked like a weird child, so I never
Yeah.
got that.
Yeah.
Also, it was definitely a commercial because the guys actually used the cards. It wasn't like Pokemon where the cards were like a fourth wall thing. There was no cards in the show. Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually, they had the cards in the show, right?
Yeah.
So I always thought that was kind of lame that they had cards and monsters jumped out of the cards.
Oh, you were a hater. Okay.
That was
It got
totally
more
a hate.
about when the series first started. It was more about the stories, and as it got more and more popular with the trading card game, then all of a sudden the stories disappeared, and it was just card battle after card battle after card battle after card battle. Like, okay, I mean, I watched the show. I watched it for its first run. I still watch it every now and again on, like, Amazon Prime or Netflix or something like that when I'm in the mood for it, because I still enjoy it. I played the game, the card game. I was pretty good at it until it started getting into, like, the fusion era, and
I have no fucking clue what the game even.
and that
It
kind of
looks
stuff. I was like,
like it used to.
huh. I still play the games like on the Xbox. Legacy of the Duelist. you know, and I love playing through like the original Yugi stories, and then you get to like GX, and it's like, how the fuck do I play this game now? Like, there's so many new elements of the game that I'm like, what is a pendulum and
Yeah.
elemental hero? What? Huh?
XYZ what? Like that was like 2
Yeah.
cards back in the day. Now it's like 100 cards?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've
Do we
did
got
that-
the
I've done
whole
that.
alphabet times 3?
I've done that so many times with games. I started off playing when WWF had a wrestling card game
Which one?
called Raw Deal.
That was
Raw.
after
It was
No
in
Mercy, I think.
late '90s.
They had one that I remember was like No Mercy, I think. Might have been the same.
I don't know.
There
This
was like
one
a
actually
piece.
went for quite a while.
It could be the same one. There was a PC version of it.
Yeah, that came shortly after. Yeah. Anyways, I played that game and I was really good at it because I was really good at understanding the game and how to make decks and things like that. But yeah, then they make all these extra add-ons and then it just becomes really like you have to buy these cards in order to win sort of thing. And that quite often happens in card games. I also was a regional Hero Clicks champion and went to the National Hero Clicks Championships in Columbus one time. And same thing. The game used to be like, hey, just move your guys like chess pieces and roll dice and stuff like that. And I was really good at it. And then it became such an epic, like millions of sets and all these rolls and extra little add-ons and things like that. And I was like, fuck
That's
it.
too expensive.
I feel like the games always get too meta, and then it's like whatever. Well, there's no
The
point.
games like that, they're the ones that you think like, nah, I'm just gonna have a small collection and I'll start, you know, playing the game and start clicking. And then all of a sudden it's like, where'd all my money go?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, so
Like,
it's
that's how X-Wing was for me, right? Like you get in, it's like you buy a collection. It's like, cool, man. You know, I mean, I bought a pretty extensive collection for cheap because, you know, I was friends with the brother of the guy selling the collections. I was able to get it, you know, relatively cheaply, and it got me started. And all of a sudden, it's like, you know, hundreds, probably at the end, probably close like $1,000 put into it. And it's like,
Oh yeah.
where did it all go? what
Oh,
what
yeah.
happened? I mean, and then you think you're good at a game, you know, you have some good showings at like a local tournaments and stuff, and then, you know, for me, you know, I had some good showings in 2.0, and towards the end of 1.0 and 2.0, they nerfed my game style. Like it's like, I was good at this before, right? And then you play it, you know, I played at the Canadian Nationals, the only year they've had it in 2.0 for X-Wing, and just got my ass blown out. Like,
I want to jump back to what you guys just said, not the ass blowing out stuff. We can
I
just
want to jump back to blown out asses.
no,
Talk
Kieran, you
about
said
Xbox for a while.
you went to like a national championship, but like it was in Columbus. So like, did
Yeah.
they just call national stuff like Canada and US or what?
No, so it was like the U.S. Nationals, but they had regional tournaments in just Toronto, I think. So we were invited to go to that, but it was just Toronto. There was no like anywhere else in Canada didn't have it, but since Toronto's so close to the States, another really big city, there was regionals there. So if you won a qualifying tournament, then you were allowed to go and you were invited to go. And it was at there's 2 big board game conventions. One is Dragon Con, and this was the
Gen
other
Con?
one. Sorry?
was it Gen Con?
Gen Con, yeah. It was at Gen Con. And that was in Columbus that year. So I don't know. If
Cool.
you're really big into board games, then you would know what Gen Con is. It's multiple days. It's every board game or card game or whatever you can think of. It was pretty fantastic. And I went on a Greyhound bus by myself because, you know, I was the only one of my friends who won the tournament. No one else was going
I mean,
out to Columbus.
that's a better than experience than the X-Wing tournament. Like, the X-Wing, the Worlds for X-Wing is held at it was, I don't know now because obviously it's gone through, you know, different management now. When it was still FFG on its own with Asmodee, it was like it at their factory in buttfuck Minnesota. Like we sent some guys from the local area down, who's, you know, Southern Ontario actually has a pretty strong contingent of internationally ranked X-Wing players. and I think we sent 3 or 4 guys to the world tournament, and actually had, I think, a winner from one year and finalist another year. So I mean, we're pretty well represented down here, and it's just at their factory in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota. Like,
Yeah. Oh, that's like I play very, very competitive, or I did play very competitive laser tag for a while. The best laser tag players in the world are in Canada. Like there's a few American teams that would argue with me, of course, but like for the longest time, the best team in the world was in Toronto, and we would go and beat a lot of American teams. And there was a while when there was a team from Texas that was really popular, and there was a team. Fuck, I don't remember. Anyways, there's when you play really high level laser quest laser tag, it was funny because like I ended up playing with like just off chance playing with some guy at one time, and he ended up being like one of the best players in the world ever. And I just like, obviously you don't know because it's not, nobody else knows about this stuff, but then I found out, yeah, he's like he's won like the world championships like 10 times.
I didn't know.
Anyways, I'm gonna get to a couple of these movies.
Laser tag.
Laser tag laser tag world championships is a thing, although laser tag has been really badly dented by COVID. I want to get back on track though.
I think all of those things have been badly dented by, multi-year layoff of massive competition.
Well, I think there's only one Laser Quest in North America now, so it's in Ohio. I'm going to name off some of these movies that people have said, and I really quickly just want you to tell me whether you think it's trash or whether it's good. So let's get here. Jason Takes Manhattan. Is that trash or is it good?
I'm gonna say trash.
Tommy?
I haven't gotten that far into Friday films.
Tommy hasn't seen it. Meet the Deedles. Have you seen that?
Deedles. I think I have.
Apparently, it's really hard to get through.
I think I actually. Yeah, it was a Disney movie.
Was it?
Yeah. So I think I've definitely seen it.
UHF is the movie with Weird Al in it, right?
Yeah.
I remember liking that.
Yeah, I don't remember that being a bad movie.
Well,
Paul Walker was in Meet the Deedles.
Yeah, that's what it says. Paul Walker and Robert Englund.
Dennis Hopper also in it.
Interesting. Talking about the stupid
DIC Entertainment. Oh, I know them. Oh, I know them. They're the crew that made the first fucking Sailor Moon dub in the United States, and it was fucking terrible.
DIC made the second Ghostbusters, G.I. Joe series that is really panned as well. Halloween
there was
3,
a large period of life where I just called them Dick.
I haven't seen Halloween 3, but what do you think? Halloween 3? Do you guys think it's trash or it's good?
No, love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I mean, it's different. Like I think somebody said it best. The Halloween would be a completely different franchise if they hadn't gone right back to Michael for 2. If they'd have, because I mean, everybody knows the original plan was for anthologies. It wasn't meant to be a character-based franchise. So if they hadn't have gone back to Michael Myers right away, then sorry guys, Michael Myers doesn't exist today as we know him. But because they went back and the slasher genre took off like a rocket, Friday the 13th, the Nightmare on Elm Street, and all those things came around, that suddenly slashers were the it thing. It's like, well, let's just keep making Michael Myers movies.
And they were good, even all the way up to Halloween 5. Toronto Freddy is unapologetic for the movie Legally Blonde.
Wait, the first one?
I've never seen that.
I love that movie. I enjoy it. It's probably one of Reese Witherspoon's best movies, if I'm being honest.
I
I've
don't
never
think
heard
it's a
of that
movie
movie
that's
being
like critically
shitty on
panned.
too much.
I didn't think it was. I mean, so I mean, I
Uh,
don't know.
Zach likes Independence Day Resurgence, which I thought was terrible, but he likes it.
I've never forced myself to sit through it because I just don't think it's possible to follow up Independence Day. Not only this many years later, I don't know. They might have been able to follow it up back around the time they came up with it, but what was it, like 20 years later after, or 10 years? I don't know when the original
It
one
was
came
definitely a
out.
long time, and they didn't get Will
Yeah,
Smith back. And
but the original was what,
Why don't we just
96,
fucking
so it
make
was.
E.T. too? You know?
Let's not.
all right, well, I've seen this movie, and it's terrible. Halloween Resurrection is trash.
Oh yeah, it's not good.
That was
It's
actually
bad.
originally on my list, to be honest with you. I did away with it.
I don't like it, so I mean, if you like it, it definitely belongs on this list. I
It's not
think
a
it's just
movie I
trash.
totally hate, but it's got its enjoyable elements. It's pretty cheesy, pretty freaking goofy, but Busta Rhymes doesn't really bother me too much. I know that's like everyone's favorite thing to hate on about that movie, but
I just hate the whole movie. I hate all of it. I
you
hate
hate the whole
premise.
fucking movie, all of it.
I hate the premise. I hate the acting. I hate Michael. I hate everything about the movie. I honestly did not. There's nothing likable or redeemable about the movie to me. Like, lots of movies I don't like have one or two things that I'm like, oh man, I wish they would have done this better because this actor was good, that was bad, this was good, but it got held down by this. This has nothing I like in it. Zero things.
It also took on like a premise of something that just doesn't hold up, right? Like that type of reality TV show they were parodying at the time.
It's a
It
web series, right?
doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
It's just awful.
Yep. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Ken had 3 movies. Scream 3, which I actually don't mind at all. I like watching Scream 1, 2, and 3. Terminator Salvation. I remember thinking that movie was pretty good, and then I never wanted to watch it again. So it
I'm
couldn't
trying to
have been
remember which
that
one
good.
was Salvation the before Genesis?
Salvation is the one I think with Christian Bale in
Oh,
it,
that was the
isn't it?
Christian. Oh, okay, yeah, that's awful.
Yeah. And My Bloody Valentine 2009. I don't know, is
was
there more
awful.
than one? I've never seen My Bloody
There
Valentine.
was the original one, like the 70s.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I didn't even know that one existed, but
Yeah.
I know the other one. So yeah, I can't comment on that one. What do you think about Scream 3, Terminator Salvation, and My Bloody Valentine?
Terminator Salvation is just awful. It takes everything good about the franchise and just sort of makes it stupid. Like I never enjoyed that story. The way they told it was just weird and you know stupid to me as a fan of I mean, I guess a close fourth for me probably would have been T3 for me because I actually enjoyed that movie, but it was awful. And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was not good part of the canon, but it fit in the canon as a story. Like, we can complain about it being bad all we want, but it was a logical progression of the story to actually getting to Judgment Day. Like we actually needed that event to occur, to trigger what had actually already happened. You know what I mean? Like, Terminator is the ultimate bootstrap paradox. Judgment Day has to occur in order for the first Terminator to occur. Otherwise, the first Terminator can't occur. So it's the entire series is a bootstrap paradox that has to be paid off at some point. And getting that payoff on film was actually good. I liked, it was Arnold at his peak Arnoldiness. Post Governator Arnold at his peak.
Yeah.
And
I liked it too. I actually wasn't. I didn't hate that movie. I mean, there was lots of jokes and wisecracks in it, and Arnold wearing the weird Elton John looking glasses,
Yeah.
and those sorts of things. A lot of people didn't like, but man, him walking out holding a coffin in one arm and a gun in the other was pretty awesome. There was
Yeah.
lots of great stuff in there. The actor who played John was good. Um, I thought it was a pretty decent movie, but yeah, Salvation I thought was terrible.
Awful.
I haven't seen any of the Terminator movies in years, but if you are curious about My Bloody Valentine, all you have to do is look far, maybe a year or so, year and a half back in the channel's videos. We did a watch through on here of it, and it was fucking terrible. It was awful. I have no desire to ever rewatch that movie ever again. And that was the first time I watched it.
Yep. Yeah, I guess probably time to start wrapping things up here. Don't know if anybody wants to chime in on something else that they were interested in talking about today. I don't know. I did want to ask Johnny about a couple of wrestling things while we're here, and I don't think that producer Sean here is back to take us off air yet. Did you want me to sign you out for wrestling, Tommy, or would you want to stick around for 10, 15 minutes?
I'll stick around for a few more minutes.
Okay. Let's go to some wrestling because I know John. Like I've said before, I say some rude things about Johnny sometimes. We're friends, and I say some rude things about him sometimes. But I always will claim that he has like an amazing wrestling knowledge, and so I like to ask him wrestling questions. I honestly wish I could just bring Jer in from the chat into the screen as well, because the banter between you guys on wrestling is always awesome. Couple of things I want to ask you about when it comes to wrestling. I watched. Well, actually, let's get to this first. So AEW is losing a couple of wrestlers now, and it's been made into a little bit of a big deal, which I think is kind of silly. But it gets us to the point now where who do you think that the first AEW wrestler to go out and sign with WWE and go the other way is going to be? And also part of that question, do you think Brian Cage is gone? And are you like, I would be disappointed if Brian Cage is gone. I really like him. Think he's awesome. He can do so much more than he's done in a lot of AEW. And yeah, who do you think is going to be the first one to go over to WWE and have some success from AEW? And what do you think about Brian Cage leaving?
I mean, I have no idea who it's going to be because if I'm being perfectly honest, there are very few guys in AEW that fit the WWE mold at present. They're few and far between. I mean, I think more of the guys that could do it. I think Brian Cage could do it. I think Wardlow could do it because they fit that Vince McMahon style of big, beefy bodybuilders that give Vince a Woody. Somebody like MJF could do it because he just exudes douchebag. Like he is everything you love to hate. I mean, I don't know who it's going to be to make the jump and have success at it. Everybody's going to make a big deal about whoever the first person inevitably is, but I don't think it's going to be important because the first person to do it is not going to. Honestly, they're going to get trampled underfoot just to say we're better than you. Like that's the problem.
Much in the same vein as the Invasion.
Exactly. I mean, that's the prime example, though. I mean, if you spent any time in history watching Vince McMahon book the WWE, the WWF, whatever, if there's one thing he hates, it's people that get over outside of his umbrella of influence. Even guys who work for him, he hates it when you get over and it's not something he's responsible for. Like Zack Ryder's a prime example of that. Like look at Matt Cardona now and the character he's built on the indie scene, is one of the most over acts out there right now. And he could have done that in the WWE. And he did that to a certain degree, with the Z True Long Island story, catching fire on YouTube and getting him popular. But Vince hated it because he didn't create it. Like if it's something he didn't create, he doesn't handle it well. I mean, you need to look no further than like the NWO was treated like trash in the WWF. Sting's run in the WWF was just horrid. It was
So
awful.
bad. Does he not? He doesn't have a win in WB. Is that true? I forget. He has
I want
one?
to say like a tag match or something,
Yeah. So like
but
he was buried in every
a
match.
singles win? No, I don't believe he has a singles win to his name. I don't think he has a single pay-per-view win to his name either. And it's awful.
mind-boggling.
It's awful. Like they didn't handle him well. They didn't handle his run well. It just historically Vince has never done well with guys he didn't create. Counter argument, AJ Styles. You know, he is the only person that has truly, come in over and stayed over despite attempts to mangle his push and, his stuff. So,
And he's
I mean,
the guy. He is the guy who has sort of an AEW style as well. He could fit in really well with AEW.
oh, absolutely he could. But to this point, he's a WWE guy for life. He's not leaving.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure.
He did. AJ did his time on the outside looking in, and then he got there and got over and got the push and has had main event caliber WrestleMania matches. He doesn't need to go anywhere else to prove himself. He's proved himself. He's done what he needed to do.
True. Yeah. Man. Justin comes in with a comment that everyone was thinking the entire time. The only guy Sting should have wrestled was Undertaker. It's like,
I mean, I don't know if only, but as much as I love the idea of that match, by the time they actually got Sting, I didn't want that match. Yes, okay, the novelty was still there and I would have enjoyed it, but the match would have been awful.
They could have done the cinematic match though.
But they didn't. At that point, that wasn't a thing. I mean, the WWE didn't embrace cinematic matches until the pandemic forced them to.
I know. It was so funny. I know that, I mean, stories are Vince was seeing the Matt Hardy stuff and being like, this is dumb. And then Matt Hardy was back and they did, some of the stuff with Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy as well.
Actually did a main event on Raw with one of those things that
Yeah.
topped one of the best ratings they've had in years.
Yeah.
And he still hated it.
Yeah, and he still hated it. I know. Yeah, it's funny. It's totally that thing where it's like, well, I didn't fucking make this up, so I don't want to see it. Like he's totally in Vince world, which is always just crazy. Yeah. Whew. Also, I'm kind of blanking on. There was one question that I was want to get to you. Damn it.
Well, while you think of it, I'll comment on something in the chat here. That's Justin again pointing out, tomorrow night Johnny Gargano debut. Duh. I mean, I don't think anybody doesn't see that coming. I mean, it's Cleveland, it's his hometown, it's a themed television event, and they've been teasing something big for weeks now. I think it's inevitable that tomorrow Johnny Gargano shows up. How? I honestly have no idea at this point. I mean, he does have a history with some people, a lot of people in the company, not just the Adam Coles of the world, but that could actually make sense because if you know your history, Chuck Taylor and Johnny Gargano were an indie tag team called Fist for a great long period of time in Chikara, which if you've never heard of, you should definitely look up. I think the fact you missed out on Chikara is sad to me because that was literally it was comic books and pro wrestling. Like that's the best way to describe Chikara. It was comic books in pro wrestling, and the way they told stories was very comic book-esque with great matches and great stories. And Jared can attest to that as well. I'm sure he agrees with me. They told stories that would last 4 or 5 years, at a time, and they would pay them off in fun ways. And they'd have stories that, literally Eddie Kingston's back fist was so powerful. It was the back fist to the future. He literally sent a wrestler forward in time with his back fist. Yep. His back fist is that strong.
That's awesome.
You had time traveling wrestlers. You had a 1920s baseball player was a wrestler. It was amazing. Toilet demons and Chikara was the king of crazy gimmicks. I love it.
I know why Jer liked it now.
No comment.
Jer shows me the weirdest. He's like, oh, you got to see this. You got to see this. And every single time he shows me something that he says, you got to see this. I'm like, I didn't need to see that.
Most
Nobody needs
people,
to see that.
most people have actually seen Chikara, but they don't know they've seen Chikara. Because Chikara was one of the big wrestling things that got over on SportsCenter at the time. The snake hypnotize,
I've
that was
seen that.
Chikara,
I've
where
seen
the
that.
the guy was dressed as a snake and literally hypnotized the other opponents into dancing in the ring and doing stuff. That was
Yeah.
Chikara.
And it was
That
like
was
it went on for like 10 minutes.
oh, it could go a
Yeah.
long time. I mean, I mean, Evil Uno, but
Wasn't
before he was evil, he was a Nintendo character.
was Kevin Steen in that? What did he get hypnotized?
Oh God, no.
Someone big time got hypnotized, didn't they?
Um,
I thought someone fairly famous was in there before that.
Lots of people have been hypnotized in Chikara. I want to say Bryan Danielson was
Okay.
at one point
Maybe
hypnotized.
that's it.
Possibly in a King of Trios tournament. Those were pretty big back in the day.
I didn't, and this will be the last thing we talk about because I want to end at 11. So let's quickly get in here. But Justin Smith talks about GCW, which I watched for the very first time. I did not watch either the championship match or the tag team championship match, but I did watch what was on before that, and I really love the stuff with Effie, even though I hate Jarrett. I thought what an interesting friggin' weird character. Really gave me some Gold Dust, like early Gold Dust vibes with the fact that he's just unapologetically weird. So I liked that. I really hated. I don't know why Vincent showed up as Vince and all that crazy stuff. That match with Cardona and Janela was good at times, but the amount of like weird pauses in the middle of it was crazy and like
it
really,
was
honestly, it really turned me off of that match. Like I came back to it later and was like, okay, they're wrestling again, and we'll get to see the rest of it. But that I thought that was the way that they interrupted that with Smart Mark and all this stuff was god awful.
it. That match is sort of the product of long-term storytelling. Like if you followed Cardona's GCW run, then the match was exactly what you expected going into it. I was expecting an overbooked production to the point that, I don't know if you were paying attention to the chat, but, I called out the last two run-ins before they even happened because I was waiting for them. When everybody else was like, why isn't this over yet? I'm like, no, there's still two more. There's still more. Like, there's still Brian Myers and there's still somebody else because that's what they've been building the match to. Did I expect the X-Pac run-in to be after the match? No. I expected that before the end of the match. I still expected Janela to go over, but they kind of changed the order and had X-Pac come out at the end, after the match and do all that. But it was just typically overbooked in a way that made sense. This show is not indicative of GCW in a lot of ways because they had one thing going against them that they weren't ready for, and that was being on traditional pay-per-view. Where you have a hard out. You have to be off the air before the pay-per-view times runs out, or they will just cut you off. There's no, okay, well, you get a 5-minute overrun because your show's running long.
Like Goldberg DDP.
Exactly. You get that hard out, and that's it. When the time's up, you're done. You're off the air. And they showed that, with the clearly rushed main event and semi-main, where both of those title matches were rushed to get to the finish because they just had to. And a lot of people were expecting something different with the main event, and I can sit here and say, would I have liked that to be the FTR moment? I honestly knew it wasn't. And I had that feeling for a long time. Like, yes, okay, I thought maybe it could happen here, but at the same time, traditional wrestling booking in this angle would have seen, the next response be the Briscoes. Not FTR, because the last time, the only time these two teams have been in the same place was at Final Battle, where FTR showed up unannounced. So I was expecting, the Briscoes to show up on a Dynamite or a Rampage or something like that, and beat the smack out of FTR, building up to that match, probably at Revolution. But you have to be more specific than that, Justin. There was quite a few.
I gotta cut you off there because I do want to get off by 11. And Justin Smith, we talked about this just for you, so I hope you're happy. But just wanted to fill some extra time till we got to 11, which I'm gonna cut you off. Johnny, out of 10, because I've never seen GCW before. Out of 10, what was that for a GCW show?
Oh, man, this is tough because you kind of have to rank it on two fronts: as a GCW show and as a traditional pay-per-view.
I want you to sell me on because I thought that was pretty good.
It
But
was
what was it
missing
on a
a lot of
GCW
things
level?
because of the location. It was hampered by being in New York and being run under the New York State Athletic Commission guidelines, which eliminates one thing that makes GCW, and that's blood.
Okay, so
when you can't have,
going to see more of that Nick Gage craziness.
Oh, absolutely. It missed the death match. It didn't have any of that. Sure, they had some doors and some of that stuff, but it just missed that general GCW-ishness that makes it a great pay-per-view. If you want to watch a GCW show, always I'd suggest watching a Joey Janela Spring Break. Is always just the craziest shenanigans, craziest pop-ups, crazy matches. It's just always just a fun, crazy experience. But I'll give the world on GCW, I'll give it an 8. The early matches were good. They were fun. I liked the Effie Jarrett match. I liked, the pre-show stuff was fun. Seeing Thunder Rosa and Lufisto throw hands is one of those matchups that's like way up here on me as an indie fan that I want to see happen very badly. Tony Khan, if you're listening, book that shit now. Like tomorrow on Dynamite, please.
Because he listens to us.
Because he listens to me. He listens to me so well. So we might get that match in like 4 months when he starts actually using my ideas again. He likes to run 4 months late on my ideas, but it was just a great card, top to bottom. It had its blown spots, and that lucha match, those luchas for going long, unnecessarily. I loved the pop, for the Cardona entrance and all of those things. Effie and Jeff Jarrett's entrance was amazing. I loved that. Effie, I just love in general, and having the Hate Club come out to end it. Always, I love seeing Matt Tremont. He's a favorite of mine as far as a deathmatch guy goes, and Nick Gage is, top of my guilty pleasure list for guys I love watching all the time.
Cool, good stuff. All right, then. Anywhere that they can find you going on there, Mr. Johnny?
Oh, you can find me here, there, and everywhere. Bros Before Pros and the Inside Handoff Football Podcast.
Awesome. And where can we reach you, Tommy B?
Find me hanging around at TommyB1650, Twitter and Instagram. Facebook, our Fandom Empire Den and all of our other groups and pages. Really excited. Tomorrow we're getting next episode, Book of Boba Fett. We're going to have time to talk about it, but we're expecting something, so only time will tell. Look forward to tomorrow morning.
Awesome. Once again, guys, just pushing the Patreon on you guys today. I know, but I just want to know because there's so many people that are going to watch this and be like, where's our Halloween scoop? It's on Patreon. It's going to be on Patreon. So become a Patreon member and you'll get all the interesting, cool scoops that we have on that. So you can do that. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, guys. I know that, we don't have Sean. It's
Stop. Just stop.
Oh my God. The Book of Boba Fett's been awesome so far, but we're not getting into that. We'll do that later, but that'll be a whole other fucking half an hour. Anyways, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. And I guess we'll see you next week. Keep an eye. Also, if you're on Patreon, you can get our Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, House of the Empire show, which we just recorded. You can watch them live if you're part of the Patreon. If you're not, then you got to wait until a couple months from now, probably, when we release them weekly. So, yeah, join Patreon for that too. Anyways, guys, I will see you guys next week, as I'll probably still be the host next week. Thanks for joining me, Tommy and Johnny, and everyone in the audience. And without that, we're out, guys. I mean, unless
right now. Yeah,
now.
right now.
Now. out.